Honey, you got a pendulum over there?
Yeah, I do.
Can you just
I need,
clear everything having to do with this class?
yeah.
Like yeah.
Please clear any weird technology issues with mine or Catriel's computers and or printers.
Yes. Yes, please.
Yes.
Watch it start printing. All right.
Thank you.
This is yours. It will only get you through the eight. But ironically, this came out and apparently it's invisible. So if you want the invisible,
Blank, that's my last name.
well, you know what? Actually, that's funny.
Yeah.
If you want to take notes, you could.
Okay, true.
That's not a bad idea.
Mm.
There you go. And then, does that pen work? Sure.
Yep.
Perfect. And then I'm gonna put the share up so that everybody can see. There we go. Perfect. Okay. So did everybody read the book?
No,
No. Okay, that's okay.
I just decided to show up.
That's awesome. I love it.
No, that's great.
This is
I
exactly.
I listened to a lot of the book
Mhm.
on in the drive. I didn't finish it completely, but I also know that there were times where I was zoning in and out. So we'll see how much the subconscious retained.
It's interesting reading this book. It was a lot harder than I anticipated.
Yeah, I feel like
And
the first one was easier.
have you read the Four Agreements? Okay.
Oh, yes, that's, Miguel. Somebody.
Um,
Don
Don
Miguel
Miguel
Ruiz.
Ruiz.
Yes, yes, a long, like when it first came out, I read it.
Why is that even okay? Yeah, that's weird. Um, yeah, so like last week we kind of had a conversation around the Four Agreements.
Okay.
Which were let me see if I can.
Be impeccable with your word.
Yeah, thank you, please. That'll be easier.
Well, I'm not gonna remember all of them. I like be
Okay.
impeccable with your word. Don't take anything personally.
Which is difficult.
Oh, what I don't remember what the last two are. I
Don't
can't think.
assume anything.
Don't assume anything. Yeah.
And what was the last one? Crap. Do always do your best.
Always do your best. That's it.
I'm gonna write this down.
We should know this by now.
I understand, but here's the thing. And there's a lot going on, and
It's true.
I'm trying to this. There we go. Now I'm not living on the edge. So the first one, of course, be impeccable with your word. So for a moment, like, what does that mean to you? Because we spoke about it a little bit, but it's kind of the framework to be able to go a little bit deeper on another question.
Mhm.
Not the whole thing, but
Right, well, to me, it means be considerate of what you're saying to the person or the audience. You don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. You don't want to come across harsh, but you do want to speak your truth and have that freedom to do so.
mm,
So be mindful of what I'm saying and how I think it may affect the audience.
I love that. Jana, anything that you can remember from last week that we spoke
Well,
about that he adds as well?
it's not only about yes, being conscious of your audience and who you're speaking to, but also how you're speaking to yourself at the same time. I think so I don't did he talk about it in this book probably where up to a certain point, in our childhood, like we're carefree and we think we just explore the world and love everything. But then at a certain point, we start to shift into thinking about what everybody else thinks of us and so talking to ourselves negatively and that kind of thing and we really talk about you know like we talk about in Soul School too, we are the creators of our universe. What we
Right.
speak into word is creating our reality. And so
Mhm.
it's not it has to do with um how we speak to others, how we speak to ourselves, and how we really speak to the world around us.
Agreed.
Agreements. Yeah, so one of the things that he also mentioned, which goes along with everything that you guys are saying, is we're essentially we have the power through our voice box to give life and take away, like give blessings or curses,
Mhm.
and we can choose either which way. Obviously, we prefer to give blessings,
Right.
but there's moments in life where maybe we're
Not so much.
in the car.
Yes.
Like I used this as an example last week, we're in the car, we're in our own heads, we're trying to get to our destination, and that other person in front of us cut us off or whatever. And what comes out of our mouth? And it's those kind of moments where like we have to take it in. It's like, was it really that important? Whatever was going on?
Ego.
Exactly. It's the bruising of the ego.
Right, right.
So that takes us to the second, which is don't take anything personally.
I'm still a work in progress on that. And something
Me
happened to me
too.
today.
Me as well.
Right, I was on my way to the bank, so we get into the bank, the car in front of me just stops. And I'm like, and a person gets out, thinks nothing of it, and I'm like, really? Like, you couldn't put your blinker on, or, nope. And I just said, okay, Phyllis, don't let him take your piece.
Oof.
Don't let him.
There,
ruin
that
your day."
it's
Or my
so
mom-
it's such a good thing to get to catch yourself in those moments and be
Oh,
able to say those things, you know?
and I can't say I always do. Sometimes I do, be negative. I try not to, again, like you said, I have to be in the moment, and in the moment, what do I want to happen? How do I want my day to go? And how do I want to feel inside? Do I want to be like, or do I want to be like, okay, maybe somebody in his family passed away. Maybe he doesn't feel good today. Maybe he didn't sleep last night.
Yeah.
Maybe blah, blah, blah. Maybe he's having a rough day, and maybe he didn't mean to do it on purpose. It just happened.
Right.
So, it really is all about me, though.
Mm.
What do I want to control, and what do I want to be aware of?
Mhm.
And how do I want to be?
Yeah.
What kind of person do I want to be?
Yeah. That takes us to the next one, is don't assume anything. It's like you stopped yourself from assuming anything a part of his day, right? Like in the way of like, okay, there are reasons. I don't necessarily need to know them, and I don't need to make up stories.
Yeah.
I think we're really, really good storytellers. As a world, we are really good storytellers.
Yeah.
It's true.
Boy, don't go in the neighborhood, okay?
And then always do our best. This one is like gold for cementing all of the other ones ahead of us. Like being impeccable with our word. If we're always doing our best, we're always giving the best blessings and magic that we can share with others. We are in our own lane, focused on what we need to do, but also considerate of the actions and all the different things going on around us.
Right.
And then we're also not making up stories. We're seeing the best light of each person.
Yes.
So that's a little bit of a recap on the 4 agreements. Now let's jump into the 5th agreement. So we're going to go to question 2. In the book, he reminds us of the 4 agreements on how, by adding the 5th agreement, which is be skeptical about everything and learn to listen. How does this impact the 4 previous agreements?
Wow.
A lot to unpack
Yeah,
there.
it is. There's no assumption. there can't be an assumption about what's happening. I can't say that the person that just did, the thing at the bank, that he did that on purpose to me, and who does he think he is, and blah, 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 blah. Pull it back. I don't know what this person's day is like or what's happening, and maybe he did do it on purpose, but so what?
Mm.
All he did was stop the car, my car didn't get ruined, nothing happened, I think it scared me. Is what I think happened, because it was just a jerk reaction, because he just stopped, the person got out, and I'm like, in the parking lot. So I didn't really have any control of the situation. So I had to go inside, I feel, just take a breath and say, okay, this just happened. Make no assumption. It just happened, just move on.
I love that. So essentially that be skeptical and learn to listen to your inner self. Wow.
It's about learning your own truth. And your truth might look different from the person next to you.
Yeah.
Like that, it's also about, I feel like it's also about being curious
Mm.
and listening to different perspectives.
Yes, because that also, I feel, can give me information that I didn't have before.
Right.
So maybe I can see the situation different, or the problem, or whatever it is, because now I'm getting more information instead of just in my box.
Right. And we're actually going to be unpacking a lot of that, because that he really goes into detail with some stuff in regards to us living in our own worlds and things like that. He speaks about, in the beginning, we are programmed to be who we are and not what we think we are. How can this be different?
Gee, I don't even know. Well, when is this starting? Like from childhood, or is this
From the moment that we are aware in this, well, I mean, I guess you could go, but let's actually use it as you're coming into this life. I mean, obviously, because the soul is eternal, it goes way before that.
Well, yeah. Well, actually, you have your parents or a guardian or whomever that may be, and they kind of mold you to what, some of their beliefs are and what happened to them in childhood. And then they bring that forward and teach me that that's how I should be. When I really, well, I'm talking about from my childhood. No, you're going to know this in the chart, that alcoholism and being in an altered state with someone, they really don't, they're not in reality. So things that are coming in and what they're telling me and how I'm supposed to be and what I'm supposed to be feeling is not real. You should always be upset, and you should, screaming, yelling. So it took me a long time for me, and I'm still, exploring this, is to who do I want to be? Who am I really? And who am I meant to be? I'm not really sure, because there were so many influences on my life growing up that it takes a while for me to discover what direction do I want to go in and who do I want to be. So I don't know if that answers the question. I don't know.
Well, it's interesting because, there is who we are at a soul level, who we came in as, that's who we are, right?
Right.
And then what we're told that we are.
And that's, yeah.
And that's a huge difference.
It sure is.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
And also, what we're told we are, and that also can come up against, what do we think? What don't we think? And that can change.
Yes.
As we come more online and aware.
Yes, and hopefully it does. I mean, not unless you're, fabulous and wonderful, then we'd want to be that. But, as you grow and you go along, you go, oh, wow, I don't want to do that anymore. Or I don't like how that makes me feel inside when I do blah, blah, blah. I don't want to do that anymore. So I feel that is growth and change. And you kind of, it's like a snake, you're shedding your skin,
Mm.
you know, and going into different phases of who I'm supposed to be, because there was, I don't know who that is, and there was nobody to tell me who I was supposed to be, or who, you know, or who, or how I could be, or, you know, I think it's just a growing part, not unless I'm sure there's some people that come in knowing who they are, or what their soul, journey is, or who they're supposed to be, but I didn't.
It's really interesting because you said something that was like bam for me. So, you know, in another area in the book, he talks about like the beginning, right? But also from Adam and Eve kind of scenario,
Mhm.
and how they knew everything. They were perfection. And then the snake asked them,
Yeah.
and it kind of created a distortion essentially. But what you just said is we're here to shed layers like a snake.
Mhm.
Interesting.
It is interesting, yeah.
Like we became aware at that moment when we ate from the tree of knowledge, um, like those layers, being like the snake, which is wild. I never thought about it in that way before. Whoa.
It is the year
I
of
mean,
the snake, so
and it is the year of the snake.
Yeah.
the
It's
wood
great.
snake, so the tree.
Say that again.
I said the wood snake, so you got the tree in there too.
Oh, yeah. Huh.
Hmm.
Any other thoughts on?
No, I think you guys covered most of what I was thinking too. So
Okay. So this next question, we are in the world of symbols. Each word is a symbol that is agreed upon by many to make it to become a symbol. What are the symbols that we pay attention to in our life? So that can be anything.
Yeah.
I used word as an example. For instance, the sky. Like in English, we all agreed that the word sky is sky. It means up, it's above. But in another language, it's not sky.
Mhm. Right, right, it's, it depends on where you're from and what you grew up with and what you know it to be. Not that it couldn't change.
Right.
But that's what I know it to be.
And culture is a huge part of that, right?
Mhm.
Culture, language,
Family dynamics.
yeah.
It's unlimited.
Mm.
How, like, so what are some symbols that you guys like pay attention to in your life that means something to you?
A big red stop sign.
That's true.
Mhm.
That's true.
Yeah. I keep getting a cross, like a crucifixion.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Because when I see that, I think of many things. See that.
I would say like for me, Jewish symbols like the Star of David or the menorah.
Mm.
Also, I just love symbols in general. Astrology, like that's a whole
Oh, yeah.
language
Yeah.
right there.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, hun?
I mean, like I think of like, when we get to when I think of like signs and synchronicities and those kind of things, like the we think about that a lot when we start really waking up in the world. Like when we start like the process of waking up, we'll pay attention to the different like, oh, that butterfly means something to me, that cardinal means something to me, that
Yes.
dragonfly means something to me.
Yes. Yeah.
So I see, I think there are symbols that are very personal.
Mm-hmm.
And then my phone is a symbol of a communication device. And that's worldwide, like,
Yep.
Yes,
so,
that's interesting, because my car to me means freedom.
Mm.
And
Yep.
if I have a dream and in the dream I can't find my car, I know something's happening with my freedom. Like either it's
Mm.
being limited or something happened that it's changed. And it's like, I just know that.
Mhm.
So that's, yeah, it's interesting.
That's
Wow.
that's awesome. That's very
Yeah.
interesting.
So it's interesting because there's a progression in the book essentially that says, well, are all those symbols true? It's our way of being able to communicate with one another,
Mm,
but we are the totality. We are everything, like we are reflections of the divine.
right.
And so it's all happening within us. How do we bridge that gap essentially?
Mm.
I mean, I was struggling with this when I was listening to it in the book. I'm like, I love symbols.
Yeah.
What the flip? Don't take that away from me.
That's great.
But at some level, that's ego, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like, okay, well, if you are everything, like that's being, you know? And I feel like in some way, shape, or form, we like to be able to crack the code,
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
It's something for us to like something fun for us to do.
Yeah. And some things I don't need to be cracked. It's like, okay, it is what it is.
Mhm.
But I like what Jana said, the butterfly and dragonflies. I love nature. So I'm right there. Yeah. When I see a butterfly, that's transformation, new beginnings,
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
pregnancy with, new ideas. Yeah.
I love it. So then he, excuse me, he goes through an example of you walking into a movie theater and realizing that it is the movie of you. Okay. Now just like let's just picture this for a moment, right? You're walking into a movie theater, and the first theater you go into, and you're the main character.
Wow.
How are you going to see this? Like, okay, I jump into your movie.
Mm,
How do you see me? How do you see Jana? How do you see your mother?
yeah.
Like, how does that play out from your mind's eye?
Mhm.
Then he takes you and says, all right, now go into another movie theater. Like go into another theater that's in there. And it's your mother's story.
Wow.
And she's the main character,
Mhm.
but you're in it
Mhm.
and you're different. You're perceived differently in the movie. You're like,
Right.
wait a minute, that's not me.
Yeah, by who though? By my mother or
By your
me?
mother.
Well, yeah, because she knew me when I was younger, parts that I don't remember. When you're young or a baby,
Mhm.
I don't remember my relationship with my mom.
Right.
So she would be able to show me something different.
And your dad's in there too.
Yeah.
And so she sees how your dad is.
Mm.
Now you go into another movie theater. Okay.
Yeah.
It's your father. He portrays you differently
Mm.
than your mother, than you. He portrays your mom differently than how she saw herself and then how you saw her. So we're literally taking all these different movie films, putting them together, and we're like, whoa, like, what is actually happening? What is reality?
Right. Yeah.
That's a trippy concept, right?
Yeah.
Like, what would that look like for you?
Mm.
Like, could you, if you had to give off certain characters
Mm.
in your life, like, let's go with let's name two characters, and then that same character, right? Like that you pick, um, how do they portray themselves, do you think? Flips everything on its head, right?
Yeah, it does. Because in relationships, now this is a relationship, right? My relationship with my mother and how she sees me.
Yeah,
So in relationships, in my opinion,
yeah.
we know, I know a certain amount about my partner, what he reveals to me, but I don't know everything. So this would be like a big surprise.
And it might
Like-
even provoke something
Yes.
because you don't know what's gonna come out.
Mhm.
They might not even know what's coming out.
That's true.
And,
Yeah,
and also you may find out that you're the hero of a story
that's right.
and you would never know it.
Mhm.
It's a very interesting way to view life.
Yes, it is. It is.
Honey, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting thinking about how the way we perceive ourselves is completely different than how someone else is going to perceive us as individuals. Like seeing the different perceptions of ourselves, I think is really like thinking through that is interesting. Um,
It kind of brings up that concept of walking in someone's shoes,
Yes.
Yeah.
you know? And that brings in the agreement about, don't assume anything.
mm,
Yeah, that's very true, because, okay, depending on where I see this person is how I'm gonna know them.
Mm,
Now, if I see them outside of how I know, like, for instance, I go to the gym a lot, and I see people at the gym, and I see them in a certain way, because we're at the gym. Now, if I see them in church, or if I see them somewhere else, I'm gonna see another part of them that I didn't know existed, or that I'm not, that's not revealed to me,
right.
because we're in a certain,
and so your
way.
perception shifts then.
Exactly, so
You
again,
get a bigger part of the story.
right. So there's different parts of us.
And it's the way I see this also is very similar to reading a birth chart. Like we're using 12 different archetypes to be able to, in different forms, because, they all, like, the planets are also related to, the zodiac. Like there are leaderships in that,
Right.
the houses as well.
Mhm.
And we're seeing these different faces all put together. And that is a story about ourselves.
It's a story about where I was, where I came from, where I am now, and possibly where I'm going.
And what's wild is if I read your chart and then she read your chart
Yes. the
and then Joe
interpretation-
Schmo read your chart
the
and
inter-
you read your chart, they would all be different.
Yes, I agree. I agree, yeah.
And so it's like it also shows how beautiful we are as individuals,
Yeah.
because there is no one like you,
That's right.
and there's no one like you.
There's no one like you either.
Is that a good thing? But it's like, there is power in perception.
Yes. And if I'm doing the same thing that somebody else is doing, it will be different because I'm bringing my own uniqueness to it. So we can be doing, starting out kind of doing the same thing, but then when we, go to do it or explore it or reveal it, it's going to be a little bit different because, as we're saying, our perceptions are different and what's happened in my life experience is different.
Right.
So that's also molded me to how I see things.
Exactly. So let me see here. If you chose to not take things personally, how did this happen? Oh, I must have just not taken this question out.
Oh.
Since it was the 4 agreements and the 5 agreements, I just copied it and then replaced the questions real quick so I didn't have to create a whole new document. So that works. You get a nice question from, oh wait, no, you didn't get that question anyway, so that's perfect. Okay, each mind is a world. What does this mean to you? every single person is an entire like universe. And like this is a huge Kabbalistic thought, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because like this is something we talk about a lot in Kabbalah. And it's also with the Native American, traditions and things like that. It's like we are an entire universe. And like that's why each soul is so precious.
Mm.
I feel like it also plays a part of like what we just spoke about.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, like there's so much to us.
Mhm.
Like I'm an entire constellation system within me,
And we don't get to see all of it.
right?
Because, lifetimes, some people live very long, some people don't.
Right,
Some people just come for a short time and you don't really get to know a lot about them.
right.
And, isn't it funny? Sometimes, my father said this to me, he goes, we'll know more about somebody after they pass than when they're here.
Ooh.
And it's true, because, all right, let's just say, Gene Hackman just passed away, 95 years old.
Oh.
He and his wife were found deceased in, New Mexico in their home.
Oh.
They think it was, what's that stuff that filters into
Carbon
the-
monoxide.
I was gonna
Thank
say
you.
carbon monoxide.
Yes, they think that that's what happened, but they're not sure. They don't see any foul play or anything, but I only know a certain amount of things about Gene Hackman.
Yeah.
Like his wife obviously will know more about him than me,
Yeah.
but where was I going with that?
You learn more about someone after
Oh.
they pass.
Right, so we don't always know, we don't always see everything about that person when they're here, or even in our contact or relationship, or
Yeah.
you just don't.
Yeah, and it also makes you think about like very similarly like close people in your life who passed on. I mean, yes, we know we can connect with them, but it's not the same.
Right.
It's not the same regardless, and like I felt like an entire universe literally passed on when my granny passed away. She was one of the center points
Yeah.
of
Mhm.
she was the sun. She was a Leo, you know what I mean?
Yes.
She brought
Yes.
the life to so much.
Right.
And it's like where then you have to recalibrate
Exactly, because now you're without that individual in your life, and the things
in
that
the
I
same
used to
way,
do with them, yes, I'm not doing the same things with them. And I find it interesting that when you form friendships, you have friendships with people that you do certain things with, because everybody doesn't want to do everything.
Right.
Like there are friends that I would not tell them about my spiritual or metaphysical adventures that I have.
Okay.
They're more religious, and it just wouldn't work. But there's other things that we like about each other.
Yeah.
So we go do those, like maybe we join a book club, or we go out to eat, you know what I mean? Or we go to the movies, we do something different. So I have different groups of friends that I do different things with.
I love that.
So, yeah, it's like, so that individual with all those things you did with them, not saying that you couldn't do it with somebody else,
Yeah.
but something really special about that individual that you did it with.
Yeah.
And, for me, and then when that's taken out, it's almost like there's a gap there.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, what am I gonna do to fill that or change it, or, maybe keep doing some of the things that we used to do together on my own,
Yeah.
just to keep it alive.
Yeah. What about you, honey?
Well, so I think about it like we are each our own universe, but our own universe is made up of all of the other universes.
Yes.
Like we are influenced by
Mhm.
those around us. Like you were talking about fellas going out with your friends, like maybe that's a cluster of universes right there, and they shift and they change based on the other worlds that are around us. I think you talked about how, like we have to, after a loved one passes, we have to recalibrate and all. I pictured like we are all light. And so it's like when a star goes out, like a
Mm,
star diminishes,
yeah.
or, like even when a star goes out, a lot of times it's like exploding, right? Like a supernova. We start to see after someone passes, sometimes we see more parts of them, through stories shared and different things. So it's like a supernova. And we collect parts of that universe,
Oh my gosh, I love
add
this.
to our own.
Oh,
It's
I
true.
want to just marinate in that. So, wow, thank you, honey.
Hmm.
So our next question is, he brings up this concept that from the beginning of time, mankind has been in conflict with good and evil. Is this truth? Would it be more accurate to say mankind has been wrestling with truth or lies? Truth doesn't need an explanation. It just is. What are your thoughts?
Hmm.
That takes a while to process.
I know it's a
Yeah.
lot. It's a lot.
Exactly.
It's like, well, we think about like, you know, the only reason why evil is called evil is because someone called it evil, and we all agreed upon it being evil. It's like, I'm not like, we don't want to go into like the specifics. I'm kind of speaking
Right.
broadly because
Yeah.
we know, but essentially there's dark and light.
Yeah.
That's where it comes down to. It's dark and light. And the dark, is not always seen, right? Like you don't know what's there. But in order
Truth
for
hasn't been
dark,
illuminated yet.
yes. And in order for there to be darkness, there has to be light, right? Because then a shadow can't be present with, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And you
Yeah.
don't want to be
Yeah.
complete full light.
Right.
You'll be fried.
Yeah.
Like you'll be beyond a supernova. And if you're just pitch black, it's just like, and we're bringing up very Kabbalistic concepts of like Ein Sof energy, all or nothing.
Yeah.
And so like the two work together. But then we start to realize, okay, all right, well, how did maybe evil even get there? Is because there was some type of fear, right? Like we don't know what it is. It doesn't make sense to us. So we start, and then it's created lots of lies.
We start
Why do
telling
people do what they
stories.
do? Huh?
That we start telling stories.
Yep. We start telling stories. We create different belief systems, cultures, and some of this stuff isn't bad. Like, okay, like culture, let's say Israeli food. Awesome. We love, we love the flip and eat. We love hummus. We share that with our brothers in Greece or, like Persia or whatever. Like, but food is one thing. Then, you get into the other parts of culture, and other belief systems, and it gets very interesting. And we have all these layers and layers and layers and layers of history, of time, of stories.
Right. Right. And this is so and so's story, and they're passing it down. But I may not want to do that, or I may not want to believe in that. So that's really their story. And then I'm gonna have my own story,
Right.
which may have nothing to do with their story. And that may upset that person because I'm not following them or I'm not letting them influence me.
Right.
So they may say, oh, that's just evil. What you're saying, what you're believing.
But then we can take another, let's peer behind a little other layer in what are truths. How many times have you sat down and like talked to different religious groups or anything, right? And realized, wow, we are all saying the exact same thing. And that, it doesn't have to be explained. It's just an internal knowing, an
Yeah.
internal
It
truth.
just is.
It
Yeah.
just is. And that right there is like, that's how we're all connected.
Mm.
That's the divinity
Mm.
of being able to see that light in each person. So it's really interesting how this can all be displayed out there like this.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts, honey?
Not right now.
Okay. So the next question is, what is an example of where you have done this and could have of no, dang it. How did that still get in there? Oh, that was from last week's.
Oh.
Apparently I can't read well. Okay. Yes, there we go. How can the power of belief shape our reality for a positive or a negative experience? It really, you know, when we can think of things in bigness and that light and that truth kind of energy, we can shape the most incredible experiences because we then start to stack up these light particles. I sound like a Lhasa now that become synchronicities because there's an internal truth there. That light is being illuminated. Where things start to fraction off is when there's too many stories.
Mm.
There is I hate to say it, like, like an and, a but,
Yeah.
like rather than that's it.
Mm. But each person has their own opinion and their own experience.
Yeah.
And we can start out
Mhm.
saying the same thing, but then comes, but I feel this way. And I want to add this part of it, so I think the individual comes into play in that too. And,
Yeah.
it's our experience. And, okay,
Yeah.
so we can go to the same doctor.
Yep.
I can have a great experience, you not so much. So we both wanted to go to the doctor. We both had something that we needed to take care of. I got treated very well and my questions got answered and I'm very happy. And maybe you did not have that experience with the same doctor.
True.
So again, we can start out wanting to do the same thing and I'm having a great experience and you're not.
That is true. That is very valid. 1000% valid.
Unfortunately, yes.
It's interesting. I feel like in some way, shape, or form, we have to have something to live out,
Yeah. Mhm.
and it'll be interesting as we awaken and, start coming back into these eternal truths. How do those experiences, come into like, we're all having a great experience at that doctor,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's like, and no one really knows what is connected to what, like it's just interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah. So awareness is the first step to identifying where we need to make a change. Practice is the action being taken to change your life that you previously identified. What is an awareness for you? Like essentially, that you like want to change, or something you want to shift in your life, right?
Mhm.
What is that awareness? And did you take action? Did you do an action step? And if you did, that's awesome. how often do you do that action step?
Mm.
So there's some layers to this one.
Right, right.
So for me, I guess first thing that pops in my mind is like in 2023, like, and this has happened over my life since I started working. Like I would work different jobs and I would come into this awareness of myself that I was working to work. I was not happy in what I was doing. It felt like I wasn't being like, it was just an inner knowing, like, I'm not supposed to be doing this. I'm supposed to be doing something different, and, part of that is, so having that awareness, um, one of the steps I took was in 2023, like, I left my corporate 9 to 5 job, um, and I haven't really gone back to that life, and it's a challenge in a lot of ways. But I also know that it would be incredibly hard on my soul to have to do that again. Because I'm supposed to be doing my own thing and figuring out some things in that way. So that for me is a huge awareness that my soul is not supposed to be doing those kind of jobs, like I'm a healer. I'm supposed to be working with people in those ways.
So nugget of gold, you like the action step, you quit your job.
Yeah.
What are some other steps that you've built on top of that? You know?
I've gotten curious on things that I know that like I need for my soul's growth, or like the path that I'm leading, or I'm going towards. Um, I
Like name some.
like going to soul school.
Thank you.
There you go. There's the big one.
Coming to this.
Yeah. It's yeah, teaching a plant magic class,
Yes.
like those are all little steps, but so impactful.
Changing your your friends groups,
Yeah.
saying yes to my proposal.
That's true.
Like, we don't realize how one decision, or one awareness, I should say, one awareness has taken us down a completely different path than where we were.
Yes, yes. And Jane, I'd just like to say I commend you for your bravery and your courage for taking that step, and your life is going to be awesome.
Man,
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I
same here.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
So-
Okay, you guys continue discussing. I'm still here. I have to go to the bathroom real bad.
Go for
Okay.
it.
I'll be right back.
So like, this is a good exercise even at home to like, okay,
Oh, sure.
picking something and just like being able to just, wow, like this is how far I've come. Because sometimes we like don't pay attention to the wins.
You're right. And the other thing is we don't give ourselves enough credit,
Yeah.
because what she did, that was tremendous. That was very courageous.
Yeah.
Because like, what do you have now? Where's your income? Where's my insurance coverage? Like, what am I gonna do? But the fact that she made that decision was very courageous.
Right.
And I feel that she had some substance within her to know that I can do it, I can make it,
Mm,
and be happy. That's really the goal, is to be happy and fulfilled.
right.
Like anything, we're doing something we don't really enjoy, but what am I getting out of it? Like, why do I keep doing it?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, just do the thing, you know, and it just never ends.
Right.
And it's like, well, where's the mystery? Where's the better experience?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes, we cut ourselves short, you know.
So with that, okay, so we did that one. Okay. How important is listening?
It's everything.
The fifth agreement speaks about being skeptical, but learn to listen. This is where we identify if what is being said is truth or not truth, reality or virtual reality.
Mm.
If this is the agreement of discernment, how often do you use discernment? Thoughts on this? I totally did. I need to put how
Do
often
you
do
you?
you use? Yeah, okay, honey. Autocorrect. I
I
didn't
feel
tell it
like
that.
I feel like we use discernment like in almost everything. You know, like someone when someone's speaking to us that we can, you know, a lot of us anyways can discern whether that's a truth or a lie, or, you know, we can discern um I don't know where I was going with that. We discern what is best for us, or, you know, like depending on what's being spoken. Um, and I think discernment helps us set boundaries when we need to.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, you know, going off of your previous example, right? Your discernment was like, all right, I meant for more.
Mhm.
I am going to quit my job. That is like my discernment. It came with other, you know, things happening as well, right?
Right.
But knowing that your discernment was, I need to focus on my soul's growth, building that toolbox and being able to launch,
Yeah.
truly launch
Yeah.
as a soul on this planet. That's discernment. It doesn't mean that it's going to be an easy journey necessarily, you know, because there might be physical, practical things that come along. But as you discover those new awarenesses, you can address them and learn to do things differently.
Mm.
And it becomes a whole nother, you know, staircase that takes you on to the next dimension, which brings us into the next question, actually. There are in many cultures the concept of multiple worlds. Example, heaven, hell, purgatory, or upper, lower, in between like worlds. And then also the spiritual, emotional, intellectual, and physical. So these are three groupings.
Wow.
Essentially. Like because he essentially, I put this last one in, he often talks about three worlds. In Kabbalah there's four. So I was like, we're gonna get the four in there as well. But essentially, it doesn't matter how many there are. There's the fact that, you know, there is something that is just not truth, like not for us. It's that, like, the hell that everybody experiences at some point in time, right?
Mhm.
Where it's like, you know, hell can be on this planet, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure it was an actual physical hell for someone who were in the California fires. Their entire worlds were crashing down.
Well, what about us with the hurricanes?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's like physical things. There's also what we create in our mind,
Yeah, scary.
you know, like, and that is a physical prison
Mhm.
that we've manifested on ourselves, cancel, clear, delete. You know, and then when we have that awareness, it takes us into another world.
Yes.
of like, okay, I may have some of these other things going on, but I know that there's something more. I know that I'm coming online to something greater.
Mhm.
And it takes us into another world.
Like
You know?
addiction, they are so imprisoned with an addiction of whatever it may be. And I say I have a chocolate addiction, but I mean, it doesn't ruin my life or anything. But it's true, and you know, trying to speak to an individual, which I had a friend who had an addiction.
Yeah.
And trying to help them see that there's a better way, that there's a different way, that they could actually be happy and they could actually have, la, 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 la.
Yeah.
And I think it was more fear than anything else, because they're saying like, what would I do if I didn't do this?
Mm.
There's a whole world out, but to get the mindset and to have the courage, to step out of that box and go into something else.
Yep.
And it was torture. It was actual torture for them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, this is just like an awareness that we can bring with ourselves of like, and those moments are moments, right? Like we can jump into one world into the next based off of our well, let's use the Kabbalah, right?
Yeah.
The spiritual realms, the emotional realms, the intellectual realms, or even the physical.
Mhm.
If our basic needs aren't being met, we could be in a physical hell. But can jumping into maybe even the emotional level, right? Like, okay, well, I am creating everything.
Yeah.
I am creating everything. And if I can actually calm my nervous system, center myself, and like get myself into a better emotional state, then that can completely change my physical situation.
Absolutely. Mhm.
Yeah. And I kind of walk through a couple intellectual level, with that, because there's some, version of that conversation as well as the emotional, and they all play on each other.
They do.
They really do. And so like, just noticing like when things are amiss, where are we at and how can we climb up the stairs? Because that can be a huge awareness.
Sure.
Yeah.
And our last question is, how can we be messengers of truth?
I think the biggest way is by living our own truth.
Oof. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I love
Because
that.
if we live our own truth, it inspires others to live theirs.
Because we become like a role model for them. That yes, this could be done because I'm living it.
Mhm.
In my mind's eye, I see like we are all made in the image of the creator, right? The source energy.
Mhm.
And it's like that perfection light, when we identify and choose to live our own truth, we're like, bing, oh, I see the eternal truth. And then that also, because you're my reflection, bing, whoa. And then that it's like contagious,
Yes.
but in the good way.
Yes, yeah.
It feels like a video game. So, that is our discussion in regards to the fifth agreement. And I also want to bring up, what are we working on next week? So next week is
March.
There we go. We're going over this book over here. Hang on. Quantum Soul Awakens. This is the book that Alasa wrote. One of them at least.
Yeah.
And it has two parts. So let me see if I can find something easy. So what I wrote down on here, essentially, because you can find this on Audible, right? It ends up being blah, blah. About 3 hours and 30 minutes each for 2 weeks because
Oh, wow.
it's 7-hour book. So we're gonna take this in 2 parts essentially. And we're gonna have Alasa here, I think, on Zoom next week, and then the following week she's gonna be here in person, from what I gather. And we can, from the author's mouth, essentially, we have that awesomeness there.
Yeah.
But let me see if I can pull this up for a moment and see if I can get. She told me that there's 2 parts to this, and I haven't obviously read it all the way yet. That's this week's homework assignment. But there's how many chapters? Here. There's okay, so section 1. Well, there's 4 sections. So like let's see here. There's about 200 pages. So if you can read through at least chapters 1 through 3. Chapters 1 through 3, because that 99, page 99 is literally
Wow.
and so chapter 4, it really goes into the quantum mechanics. So if we can get through the first, 3 chapters, which is a huge bulk, then the rest of the class essentially, like it'll all even out in regards to things, in regards to timing.
Sure.
And of course, if you read more than that, it's no
Yeah, that's
biggie,
fine.
like whatever.
Yeah.
But and you can listen to it as well. Anybody who's on here, like that, wants to participate. Again, how you can find us is you go to r3miracles.com and go to our different events, and the Mystery School Book Club is on here, and you can choose to be a part of the discussion. So thank you so much, guys, for being here, being active participants.
Yeah.
Like even if you didn't read the book, you can still be a part of the conversation.
Right.
Like I do my best to be prepared as much as I can
Right.
with the questions, so that that won't impact someone who's walking in and be like, oh, I don't know, I don't know what you guys are reading. So she has this online. It's on Audible as well. And you can also buy it here.
Right.
Don't know how much it is, but all right. Love you, honey.
Love you. Bye, Phil.